Hello. For any platform to function correctly, we must begin by effectively sizing the hardware and software resources it requires. In this series of 2 videos, we are going to explain how to do a correct sizing for Nexus Dashboard. In this video, we are going to talk about the Nexus Dashboard Services Compatibility Matrix. This tool will tell us which versions we require in each of the components of the solution, depending on the functionalities that we are going to enable. Let's get started. We are going to indicate the type or types of fabrics that we have in our data centers. First, let's define a scenario for an ACI platform. In this case, we are going to select the Cisco APIC option. Next, we must indicate the release that we are executing in the APIC. Selecting the APIC version immediately enables the option to select the Nexus Dashboard version. By default, the most recent version available will be chosen. In this case, we can see version 3.1, but something interesting about these tools is that we can select multiple APIC versions in case we have several ACI fabrics running different versions. However, we are going to work with a version of APIC and then we are going to select the version of Nexus Dashboard to use. As we can see, we have the entire list of versions available to implement, and when we select a particular version, the capabilities of the tool are automatically adjusted, both at the level of the versions of the available services and the functionalities of those versions. Using APIC Release 6.1 and Nexus Dashboard 3.2, we will have the Nexus Dashboard Orchestrator and Nexus Dashboard Insight services available. For example, in Nexus Dashboard Orchestrator, we will have version 4.4.1 and the functionalities available in this version are indicated. But if we really want more details about this version of Nexus Dashboard, we just have to click on the link with the blue arrow that will take us to the detailed description of the platform known as Release Notes. The release notes of the proposed version will indicate information on supported software and hardware, services, functionalities, and more. For example, here it is indicated when the version was released, both for the Nexus Dashboard and for its services. But let's go back to the tool and we can see that for the Nexus Dashboard Insight service, we are shown the same information as for the Nexus Dashboard Orchestrator. And with this, we covered the first scenario. Now, let's analyze another scenario. What if our platform is not ACI but rather NXOS? Well, let's start the process again. This time, we select the fabric with Nexus Dashboard Fabric Controller or NDFC and the release that we are using. In the same way as with the APICs, we could select several versions of NDFC, but we are going to work with one of them and then the version of Nexus Dashboard to obtain the information of the services to use. An important difference compared to the previous case is that we are going to see the versions of NXOS that are supported on the switches, and Nexus Dashboard to be implemented. And so, we arrive at the version and description of the services that we can implement in our Nexus Dashboard for this fabric. It is important to indicate that we have the link in the blue arrow that takes us to the details of the selected Nexus Dashboard release, just like in the previous example. Here you will find another link to the tool that will help us define the size of the cluster we should use to deploy the Nexus Dashboard platform. But that will be the topic of our next video, so let's go back to the previous page. And finally, let's look at a third option, through which we are going to associate switches with our Nexus Dashboard in standalone NXOS mode. Which means that we will not use a controller in between, as we did in the previous cases with APICs and Nexus Dashboard Fabric Controller. Once we select this option, we must indicate the version or versions of NXOS that our switch or switches are using. We select the version of Nexus Dashboard to use, and since this is a new feature, it is only supported in version 3.2 as indicated when selecting a version older than this. And so, we get to the details of the versions and functionalities of the Nexus Dashboard Insight service that we can enable for this platform option. And in this way, we reach the end of this video. Remember that in our next video in this series, we are going to define the correct size of our cluster and the resources that we require for each node, depending on the services that we are going to enable. But that it will be until the next time. See you in the next video.